like,
oh, Jesus
now-ish.
Christ.
Like, it's super fast.
Can they hear the music too?
Yeah, they can hear the music.
Oh, I need to get the music going. Oh my god.
The music is fire.
Wait,
Right?
Let me get that music on. Oh no.
It's bopping. Yeah, we were wondering, we were worried about you too over here, McBluff, with your with the hurricane heading your way. So yeah, be safe. Be safe over there. Everyone, welcome to Short Rest, the show where we here at Ink and Lyre take a rest from our busy week and we just hang out with you all and chill. This short rest, you can see we have various DMs throughout all of Ink and Lyre, and we're gonna have a bit of a panel. You guys can ask us questions about what it's like to be a game master in a tabletop RPG game. You can hound us about various games that we have GM'd. We have Daniel, of course, who has been the Dungeon Master, Game Master for various Iron Valor shows. We have Deanna, who was the beautiful Game Master to our charity live stream. She DM'd the game that was written by Diana Gatta, which was the Neverland setting. We also have Jake here, who was also a Game Master during our 24-hour live stream. Jake GM'd a game that was actually written by him. It was a one-shot written by him, and he DM'd that during our charity live stream, if you got to check that out. And then we have Brandon, of course, who is currently our Dungeon Master for Iron Valor, our Candlekeep series that we do on Wednesdays. And then me, I also am the Dungeon Master and the Game Master for Fate's End, which is our Monday show. So that is the crew here that we got tonight on our panel. So let's get through our announcements real quick. I want to shout out, of course, 9 Realms Gaming. They are our partner. They create top-notch gaming accessories from the finest woods this realm has to offer. They make dice trays, dice vaults, hero vaults, dice towers, all gorgeous. And if you want to grab some of that epic game gear, visit their website now and use our exclusive partner code LYRE10 to get 10% off at 9realmsgaming.com. We also want to shout out Dicey Encounters. Dicey Encounters make gorgeous handcrafted dice for the most dicey of encounters. They make standard sets, chunky dice, magnets, and singles. And if you want to grab a set of these glittering gems, head over to diceencountersdice.com and use our exclusive partner code LYRE10 to get 10% off your purchase. We also want to take a moment to shout out our newest partner, the Shop of Many. I'm not sure if Daniel knows that command, so I'm going to put it in chat now for everyone. They are the newest. Let me put it in chat. Danny's trying to guess. The Shop of Many Things. You can grab, if you haven't visited the Shop of Many Things quite yet, you need to go over there. They have amazing Dungeon Master tools. Speaking of being a Dungeon Master, they have magic pens where you can write, and you can use fire to reveal secret messages. They have puzzles and plenty of other tools that you can use to enhance your game and your table. So go check them out. Use the code LYRE20 to get 20% off your purchase. We're very excited. We're so grateful to partner with them, and we have some exciting things coming to the stream. We'll be giving away very, very soon. So excited about that. Just a reminder, our Discord is available to all of our community members. That's Command Discord. So come hang out with us, the cast and crew, our humble little community. We just started our quest board, where we have an artist quest, and you guys are so welcome to participate. Please do. We already have 2 submissions already, but there are art quests. I mean, I started it yesterday, but we have art quests that are going on in our Discord. There's a place to brainstorm. You can see there's going to be a new quest every month, and you can check that out on our Discord in the quest section. So come make art with us, and we do hope to add additional quests very soon. You can also follow us on all of our socials at using Command Social, so check that out. Outside of that, with that being said, let's roll our hit dice and jump into this week's short rest. I'll let Jake take the reins here for a second.
Thank you, Lauren. Hey, everybody. So tonight we're just going to chat, like GMing, right? And everybody here has done it in some way, shape, or form. And we invite you all to throw in your questions in chat. I have one already. And as we get started into this, sort of what I'm envisioning this, and I hope inviting you all into this, is us just talking about our processes for DMing and GMing, what goes well and what goes badly for us, right? And sort of some of our philosophies, but also definitely just responding to questions you all have. Since right now, Lauren and Brandon are running games for Ink and Lyre, I invite their cast members in chat to roast them and grill them with hard questions. Of course, Brandon and Lauren, you reserve the right to say absolutely not.
Do I also reserve the right to roast the back?
Yeah, I'm in.
Lauren, I'm right here. Do you want to fight? Do you want to
fight? Right.
Yeah.
One of the hopes here is that we'll definitely just be kind of very jovial and friendly as we chat about these things. So.
Yeah, go ahead. Roast the people who hold the fate of your characters in their hands.
That's right. Thank you very much, Hatcher Actor. So one of the things I want to just do here is Hatcher Actor has thrown in the questions here that kind of repeated the one from above. I want you to just introduce your game, how long you've been running it, introduce yourself, and then we'll just go in a quick circle of answering the first part of this, because all of us can do this, which is, for this question from Hatcher Actor, it's how long does it take you, or did it take you, to prepare for your session or just a normal session? And I invite folks to just kind of go, and we'll just kind of go in a circle here with me being the last of this crew, maybe starting with Daniel, and just sort of answer that question and introduce yourself again.
Yeah, okay, sure, great. I always like going first. I'm Daniel. I've been the DM on Iron Valor for a little while, and I played back when it was all one shots, and then we ran Rime of the Frost Maiden, and then we ran Curse of Strahd, all that kind of fun stuff. I was the first DM on Iron Valor, and then Brandon moved on to that, right? So I've been doing that for a little while. I've been a DM for like 2 years, right? That's probably 2 or 3 years, probably the length of time I've been playing games, and I definitely prefer DMing to being a player. Is one of my favorite things to do in tabletop RPGs. As far as like how long do I take to prepare for a session, right? I usually spend somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour, like taking notes and like writing down bullet points, because I spend a lot of time thinking about the world and stuff like that. But it's like a pre-written module. I'll take like 15 to 30 minutes, but if it's a homebrew game, like maybe 30 minutes to an hour, something like that. Yeah, and that's kind of as far as how long I take on a console. I do a lot of I spend a lot of my time improvising. So because I don't know what the players are going to do, so I'm not going to try and predict it. So it's like, just hit me with it. Here's all the things that could happen. So,
Brandon.
Yeah, so I'm Brandon. Like Lauren said, I run Iron Valor now. We're doing Candlekeep Mysteries. I believe we're done game 8, so that's been going on for about 8 weeks. You guys should check it out. It's awesome. We're doing some great stuff. But how long it takes me to prepare for a normal session? Similar to Daniel, 30 minutes to an hour, generally speaking, sometimes longer. When I first started DMing, I had a huge problem with like over preparing and building up like this huge encounter and this amazing world and this huge setting and all these descriptions and stuff for the characters to completely sidestep and go the other way. So there's a lot of improv. I'll usually have like a general framework, like a skeleton of kind of where I want the game to go, but a lot of the interactions will be just completely freeform.
Yeah. Deanna.
Hi, I'm Deanna. So I am the least experienced DM here. I'm here a lot as a student. I think the only place you guys would have seen me DM was for the charity one-shot of Neverland, that again Diana Gatta wrote, which is they wrote an amazing setting, and they actually wrote a one-shot in the back of that setting, and I said, actually, I'm gonna homebrew my own one-shot because I love pain, apparently. It's a little difficult to answer how long it takes me to prep for stuff, because I've DM'd home games as well. Because I feel like for something like a one-shot or a first session, it takes a very long time to prep for that kind of situation. But I think I also still overthink things a lot, because I'd say closer to like 2.5 or 3 hours to prep for a normal session for me. But also I spend a lot of time doing world building and things that are coming later and being way ahead of where the players are that I spend time on. But it varies depending on what I'm trying to do, because first sessions take a long time for me to prep for, to be honest. Yeah.
Lauren?
Well, hello. I am Lauren. I am the game master for Fate's End, our Monday show. As in starting with the how long does it take you to prepare for a normal session? A normal session, probably 4 hours. Around. It depends on how. Like it usually depends on how much I know. Like we usually kind of meet beforehand. And like I like to ask my players so that I have an idea of what they're going to do. So we'll meet beforehand and we'll be like, all right, tell me what you guys want to do next session. And they'll go through, okay, I want to do this, I plan to go here, so that I have like if they're gonna go shopping, that way I can go ahead and preemptively like plan out the shop. I can plan out who owns the shop and maybe what the shop looks like, because that helps me. And that's like a normal session. If it's like a big dungeon crawl, it probably takes a lot longer for me to come up with everything that's going to be in there and every room. And most of the time, like for example, on the last dungeon crawl in Fate's End, with the various map of the Hush's hideout, like I had something for each and every room in there. So 70% of what I had prepped didn't get used because I wasn't sure how fast they would move through the dungeon. But that definitely took a lot longer than my typical prep time. The other let me look at the question here. When creating characters, how long do you spend on their characterization? It depends. Sometimes I'll spend like an hour or two. It depends on the character. Half of my NPCs are improv'd, and half of them I actually like the important key NPCs. I do spend a lot of time like thinking about. Like Cyprian. Cyprian is definitely an NPC I put a lot of time and thought into. I will say some of my
fuck that guy, and you were like, no.
The characters that I've improv that were off the cuff that I didn't expect where their personality would go or what their names were, like George, the cabbage guy. That was completely improv and off the cuff. I had you guys just like gravitated towards this random cabbage seller guy. Marbell was actually another one that I didn't necessarily have planned out. I think I had their name planned out and that was about it, but the personality, I was like, oh my god, I didn't even think about this. And I was like, okay, we're gonna go with, The Devil Wears Prada. And then we just went from there.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I'm gonna just briefly mention a couple of things. I'll be kind of taking all the chat questions in, right? We'll be kind of going through them as we go. I'll weigh in as well on things. I'm certainly just open to this kind of being just us discussing and chatting about various things, right? If I need to, I might just step in and be like, okay, we need to land the plane here and move on to another question, right? Because we could talk about all this forever.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so another question about NPCs came up, and I want to combine this with...
Introduce yourself, Jake.
Yeah, you have to answer the first question.
So, hi, I'm Jake. I ran a module here for called the Quad of Copper, right, where you play a bunch of little kids. And I've been really enjoying an opportunity to kind of prep and write adventures recently. I'm working on the Stargazer's Guide to Auroria that was out of our Kickstarter. And one of the things that I've found for me when I spend time is it really varies on what my goals are in that session, right? Sometimes for me, I can spend on average usually about 1 to 4 hours, similar to Lauren, kind of planning a session out, unless I determine that I have no idea what the party's gonna do, right? If I can't predict a single thing they're gonna do, then I can't prep. I'll probably spend about 15 minutes and then I'll let the party tell the story, right? And then after they set more story beats, then I'll start prepping again. And so there's certainly a range that I've encountered when it comes to prepping an encounter or a session.
If we have time, I have a question that came up just from listening to Daniel talking about prepping stuff and Lauren talking about prepping stuff. I find them really interesting because they have very different styles. Daniel, you talked specifically about improvising a lot of stuff, and Lauren talked a lot about spending like 4 hours planning out each room. I'm interested to hear from everybody, like where you feel like you fall on the scale of like writing out whole descriptions or improvising things in the moment. Like what feels best in terms of balance for you guys?
I'm gonna go first. So I usually don't do any descriptions, whether it's an NPC, an environment, a place, anything like that. And like so when it comes to descriptions and NPCs and stuff like that, it is 100%, almost exclusively 100%. What does it look like to me? And let me try and tell you, because I just think about it, right? And I'm just like, let me do my best to describe it in the moment, and then that's whatever I say is what comes out, and then I just try to remember that later on. But like all that stuff I don't do. The only things I try to prepare for are things like, usually it's if a player character has something that they want to do, right? So if a player, I know a player character needs to do something or wants to do something or wants to accomplish something, I will make time to prepare for that. But if it's like world oriented or my story oriented or things I'm trying to get the players to try and do, right? I don't even worry about it. It's like, maybe they'll get to it eventually. It's fine. I'm gonna send them in that direction, but I don't prepare for it.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just said cool. Anybody go.
I'd say mine is like, I think it depends, right? Because stuff that's like super important to the story, or like I feel like I DM in kind of a cinematic sense. So like super important story beats or like the first time they're entering in like a key location or something, yeah, I'll write like up to like about a paragraph of description or something for that. But that's pretty much it. Like anything outside of that, like unless it's like an interesting NPC or something, you know, I'll give them a description if they've got like a name. But a lot of it is just you know, it'll be a dirt road, or you know, a tavern, or you know, because I feel like everyone kind of has their fill in for those things. Like at least when I play, if there's not like a specific description, it's like you're in a tavern. It's like I know what my stock tavern looks like it in my head. So I don't generally spend a lot of time describing those things unless like there's something interesting that needs to like move the story forward or whatever. So I kind of yeah, but if it's important to the story, then I'll generally spend a bit more time on it.
Lauren?
I definitely do. I write out all of my descriptions, mostly because I write out most of my descriptions, and I write out a good bit of dialogue. If it's dialogue that has bullet points that needs to be said in order to, like, it has something to do with the story or something in the past or something in a character's background, I do write out a good chunk of dialogue that is important and vital to the story and to the game. And then, of course, there's a chunk of dialogue that isn't written, that is off the cuff, that as I have mentioned before, because I can never plan on what character is going to say to me or players are going to say to me. I can guess what they might ask, which are key questions to the story. But for the most part, I would probably say maybe half of my dialogue is planned and half of it is off the cuffs, based on what players ask me. The other thing that I do try to do in my prep, that probably is another reason why it does take me so long, is when I do write up my descriptions, it's really important to me that the area is interesting, even if it might be a humdrum location, because I want to try and keep my players interested. So usually the taverns that I go to, I'll try to incorporate unique quirks that make them unique. Maybe it's a special dish, or maybe it's the shape of the building, like the Wandering Walnut is really, really tiny, and I think they had like a unique dish there. So I try to incorporate some unique details to keep the interest, because you visit tavern after tavern after tavern, and it can kind of get old. The other thing that I try to do is I try to speak to auditory as well as visual. So when I create a key location where my players go to, I will like put together a very quick, I mean, it's nothing crazy or special, but it's like a Photoshop version of where they are. So like in the show, you've seen like the Amethyst Garden, where I Photoshopped, you know, amethyst crystals on the ceiling, and I put together like a picture of like this ceiling waterfall from someplace in the Philippines, I think it was, and just various things that'll kind of hodgepodge together. It doesn't look like professional or anything, but it helps like visual and auditorial learners kind of like connect. And even though they might kind of tone out on me talking about this elaborate location with all these descriptors, I feel like it might help connect the two together, if that makes sense. So if that makes sense.
I just want to say, like, Phaeton has had some of the best taverns and little spots in any game I've ever played. Like the Wanderer Walnut, the Dusty Anchor.
Yeah, I would spend $300 a night to stay at the Dusty Anchor. That is the best hotel.
Or the Fool's Gold Inn.
Yeah,
with the money stuck to the floor.
Oh yeah.
And the off your boots.
And the off your boots drink. Yeah, I try to make it fun, because that's usually the places that the group decompresses in after all the adventuring. So I want it to be fun and different and unexpected every time you walk through the door.
On that, right, I feel like there's a value there. I think there's a value to saving your time, right, which has been discussed here as well. But there's a value that I find of, I similar to what you were saying, Brandon. I do cinematic, but I also do, I imagine kind of video game The Shinies a lot of the time. So whenever my text, if I write text, is very specific about what I hope the players will notice, and it's always usually the last line of the paragraph, right? Or I'll be like, this is shiny and this is shiny, go look at the shinies, right? And I think when you do such a thing where it sounds to me, Lauren, there's a lot of intention to sort of not only world building shiny, but like specific settings, and when you go into it, there's at least one interactable for each of those settings.
Oh yeah, just to kind of like piggyback off of that, just like with a small little thing, there are descriptors that I'll put in there, like the shinies. Sometimes it's not necessarily a call to interact with it, but a call to what is happening in the story. So if you guys remember the wasp nests that you ignored, that was I put that in there on purpose, obviously. And Brandon on stream was like, Lauren doesn't just call attention to a wasp nest for no reason.
Yeah.
That was on purpose.
I knew there was something about it.
It's because it was a reference to Cyprian, and he was watching you and following you.
Ooh.
As a wasp.
With a lot of planning, right, we can have those really fun, intentional things that are sort of like fun for you, Lauren, right? Because you're like, are you going to notice it or not, right? And we're going to come back to other questions, but one question that has been asked was, what has been your favorite moment of improvisation for you in maybe your session, or in maybe, let's say, the last 2 to 3? And why was it your favorite?
Jeffrey Jorkin.
Just for the name?
I've heard of this name. Yeah.
Jeffrey Jorkin. I think, you know, just being put on the spot, sometimes your brain is able to cleverly put together something and the players in the audience don't know that you came up with that on the spot, and then sometimes it's like, Jeffrey Jorkin. That was probably one of my favorite improv moments, just because it, like, everyone was laughing. It was just fun, and it was just, I think it just calls to like D&D in general, when any DM, not just me, but any DM has to kind of like pull it out at the last minute, and they're like, what do I do? And like, it comes out, and you're with your friends, and you all laugh together, and you have a great time, and it's just fun, and that's what we love so much about the game.
I think I speak for everyone when I say one of our favorite pieces of your improv is Barbucks.
Barbucks, yes.
That's not me. That's my players.
No, you came up with Barbucks, and we said yes, and Lauren.
We said a coffee shop, and you definitely gave it the name.
And we made a top 10 Fortune 500 company in Aurora. Barbucks. It's everywhere.
Hey, it's an Acacian-born company. It's from Dawn's Rise. It just has some overseas locations.
Isn't that one of the greatest challenges? Have you all had the moment where your player goes, "What's their name?" and you're like, "No."
Yeah.
I don't know their name.
Yeah. So I wanna speak something about that, because someone asked a question about NPCs and how we come up with them and things like that. So I have a document. It's about 8 pages long. And in that document, and I try to keep it updated and move it around and add things to it as I find it. But this document has an NPC generator that I keep with a list of names all the time that I can roll dice on. And so, like, before the game starts, I will roll dice on it to generate NPCs that have, it's like the chart says name, like defining characteristic, class if they need it. And so I roll on that list and I generate those NPCs, and if I ever need those before the game starts, I just have this list there. It also has random encounter stuff. It has stuff for interesting environmental things that could be in the city or tavern. It has adventure hooks on it, right? Based on wherever it says, wherever we are at the time. And so it's just a living document that I keep up for the campaign. No matter where we are, this is stuff that I could need at any moment, and I just have it there as a reference all the time. So when people are like, "What's their name?" I could just look at the list for that night and say, "That's their name." And then when I run out of names, I make more.
I'm gonna be way closer to what I'm assuming Lauren's style is. Obviously this wasn't the case for Neverland because I was using all of Diana's fantastic NPCs for that, but in home games, I've got every village you go to, there's like 15 people who have names with meanings that I looked up. They have parents. But it's just because that's fun for me to do. Like, I get very into very specific NPC creation. I know what the food staple is in the village that you're in because I think that's fun. I enjoy spending my time that way.
I'd love to offer just briefly, like, those are two very different styles, right? And I want to add a third, just for folks here who are listening. Have you all heard of the premise, it's not mine, right? I found it on the internet, of I know a person. Have you heard of this at all? And the premise is...
I've heard this. It's great.
The premise is that you give over the agency of the characterization to the player. So what you let them do, and you can... I've added sort of the limiter of you can do this up to your charisma modifier. But what you can basically do to the GM is go, hey, I know that person. And then you say their name, what they do, and then you roll a die to see their relationship to you. Right?
I love that.
And I've seen players do that where they make villains on the spot. Like they'll walk into a bar and go, oh, I know that person. I'm like, oh, and who are they? And they suddenly tell their arch nemesis, right? And it's a way I've found that one's really fun, especially when you don't know who the person is. They're like, what's their name? Sometimes if it, you can go, you actually know this person. Who are they?
Ooh.
Right? And you let them tell you who they are.
Ooh. I like that.
I've also heard it used as like a solution that like maybe the party doesn't want to go a traditional route. So like if you were breaking into a place or whatever, it's like, I know a guy who used to work here. Can we go talk to him?
Yep.
That sort of thing.
And then it becomes the GM yes-anding to whatever that player said.
I love the idea of like a player coming up with a persona. I like the challenge as a DM. Like, tell me about this person. I want to become them. Tell me how I need to act. Like that. It's fun. That sounds like so much fun.
Lauren, I know a person. Their name is Jork and Jeffrey.
Jork and his evil twin.
Yeah,
his evil twin.
Oh my god!
It's exactly the same character, but with a monocle. That's it.
We've been talking about going to the Shadowfell, and that's where we're gonna find this guy.
You're gonna find Jork and Jeffrey in the Shadowfell.
Yep.
For all of you, you've all been players, right? And we're talking sort of about that relationship of the GM and the player. Which one do you like more, and why? Do you like being a GM? Do you like being a player? And what do you like about it? Why? What do you like about both?
50-50. Don't make me choose, dude.
I know. I'm sorry. And it can be both, obviously, but which one do you tend to find yourself in more, and why do you think you find yourself in more, right?
I like being a player because I'm very lazy and I'm not responsible for anything when I'm a player. I can just do what I want and somebody has to deal with it. That's not true. I actually think that there's a lot of, like a good player has a lot of things that they are responsible for and that they should be trying to do at the table. But there is, when you are the DM, there is that extra layer of, and also I'm responsible for all of these people having a good time. And it's kind of nice as a player to get to go, no, Esperise is going to be really passive aggressive to 3 NPCs today, and Lauren has to decide what's going to happen with that. That's not my responsibility. I love GMing too, though, but I'm usually a player.
I think I like being a DM more than I like being a player. I hate saying that I like control, but I do. I really do. I feel bad about saying that so much, but I do. Sometimes I feel as a DM, I feel like maybe I take too much control and I should give more control to my players. But yeah, I think between the two, I say I like to be a DM. I like forging the story.
We have the perfect relationship because you want control and I want absolutely no control. So,
I will second that. I understand what you mean about the control thing. Like, forging the story is the cool part.
I like world building. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's something. I like being a player too, but I think that being a DM is more rewarding in the sense that like everybody gets to enjoy the game that you took the time and energy into creating, And there is nothing more satisfying than like at the end of the game than saying we're gonna end tonight and everyone being like, "What?" It's like that is the best feeling ever.
That is the best feeling. That is like the natural 20 for the DM side, you know?
Yeah.
Like the players freak out when they get the nat 20, but like when that happens to the DM, like the adrenaline rush of the yes, endorphins of that.
I want to make the argument that as a player, you have a good time and you're like really relaxed. There's nothing relaxing about being a DM, but there is that extra layer of satisfaction being able to provide for people. I think they're just very different experiences.
Yeah.
And I like the chilling, but I can see the innate satisfaction of doing something that's difficult to do and really creative, and getting to see other people experience it is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I truly enjoy being a DM more than a player, because I like to think of myself as a writer, right? I like to think of myself that way anyway. And so I've always said, like, as a player, the best kind of players, and the way that I think that players should approach the game, is that if you're a player, your favorite character in a story should be someone else's character, right? That's it's like a super fun way to think about collaborative storytelling, right? Someone else's character in the game is your favorite character. When you're a DM, everyone's character is your favorite character, and you get to create a game and create a world and create a story in which all of their characters get the chance to succeed and become what they're going to become. Whether they're going to succeed or fail or do whatever, you get to push them in the direction where they get to tell a story. And like for me, like if I'm writing a story, I kind of have to do all the heavy lifting, right? Like if I'm writing a short story or I'm writing a book or whatever, all that fun stuff, you have to create all the character stories behind it and the world. But when you're playing the game like this, like you just make the world and then you see how the characters grow. And I think for me, it's super fun to see how that happens, the way other people would create stories. And I find it's super fulfilling to see how other people write and tell their story.
I'm gonna cop out and say I don't know how to choose. You know, I'm gonna do the 50-50 thing as well, Brandon. I will say I generally find myself in a GMing position more. Recently in games that I've played, when we were playing Twisted Veil, you know, I fell in love with that character, and I think I really love helping move a story along. Unlike maybe you, Lauren, or you, Brandon, when I'm a GM, feel less and less control nowadays. I try to cede control to the players, but I try to cede it in a way where it's illusory in a way. Like I still have control, but they are empowered, right? They're the ones making all the decisions. You know, in the Quad of Copper, one of the players wanted to be evil. And at one point, he did something very alarming. I'm not going to spoil it in case you can watch it, but I had no control over that situation. I did not know what was going to happen, you know? So that was really fun for me.
Those are some of the coolest moments, though. Like,
yeah, they are.
When your players do something unexpected and kind of force you to, like, you know, be on your toes.
We were talking even pre-stream about those heroic moments, right? And I feel like those tend to be the heroic moments too, is suddenly where you yield to them doing something you weren't prepared for, and you're like, you got me.
Yeah.
You did it. You know? I had a question about this sort of, we've been talking about NPCs, and we've been talking about some control, and we've been talking about like favorite characters. And I want to just hear you guys' thoughts on how do you make, when have you made an NPC that you were in love with that you knew had to die later? Because the players inevitably are going to kill them, right? Maybe it's a villain, maybe it's a character that the players started hating, right? That they're going to duke it out with. Have you ever encountered that? Okay.
So in Candlekeep, and this is similar to what you're asking, but it's relevant. So in Candlekeep, there are two named NPCs that kind of serve as like the voice of the villains. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Taryn and Brielle. And every time Taryn tries to speak, I have these little moments in the game where like the villain starts to monologue and things, and all they want to do is freaking kill my villains. I'm like, wait. Characterization. No, this is one that you're supposed to kind of have a thing with. They're like, no, we're gonna just clap them right now. Roll initiative. Let's go. And I'm like, no, wait. And it's like, yeah, eventually they're gonna get to the fight, but not even getting a chance to. Like, it's like, no, but like, yeah, you're gonna have to fight her later, but she's got a pretty cool personality. She's got a couple of quirks. Like, this is a bantery kind of villain. Let's banter. They're like, let's banter with knives and long swords. And it's, so yeah, that's probably my most recent time, something like that.
Mine will go very quick, just briefly on this, which would be, I had a vampire who I loved. I built him up. I spent years working on him. In two different times that a group of players encountered him, he rolled a nat 1 to prevent himself from getting stunned. He then was stunned and they just staked him in the heart, round 1. And I was like, oh, okay, that was the final boss. All right, he's dead now. I was really sad, but what can I do? So
I would have to say,
players felt cool.
I would have to say, yeah, vampires are so cool too. I love vampires. Like, creating characters that are vampires, too. For me, it was definitely Revenir Thorn. I was prepared for it because I was putting her up on a platter and letting the players decide if she would live or die. But it was definitely Revenir Thorn. Like, I knew she was either going to die or she was going to live.
I have a very specific question for just Lauren, because I think she's the only DM I know who does this. A lot of your major NPCs are PCs that you used to play. Do you have a harder time with characters like that? Like, if we're rude to those characters or if they die, is it harder than if you had just made an NPC?
I
know I was mean to Rhaenyra and you.
It did make me sad that because of me. Because there are a few NPCs that I do make that are characters that I've played, but there are characters that other players have made as well within our world, and that have been like I think you've ran into at least two or three others that are either NPCs or other characters that have been in other campaigns that aren't characters that I played. But look, our campaigns are like a living, breathing world, and I will say, yes, it does make me sad, but it's like watching any show that you've fallen in love with, where eventually, when there have been enough campaigns and enough time has passed, regardless of whether or not they're a player anymore or NPC, it's sad to see them go, to see them die. But yeah, it is hard for me. It does make me sad.
Is it?
But
okay.
I'm prepared for it mentally.
I always think the world is designed to help the story progress, right? Not that the story doesn't. The story helps influence the world, right? But the world is designed to serve the story, right? The world serves the story, not the story serving the world. So, and I think of NPCs as part of the world. So to answer your question, every NPC I've ever made, I've thought that the players might kill them. Like, I don't think I've ever created an NPC that I wasn't ready to let go of or ready for the players to kill at any moment, or at least try and fight. Like, because I think that the players will tell you what they want to do with an NPC.
I had a learning experience with a specific NPC because I was running, it was a home game. I had one player who wanted to play an evil character who's going to learn to be good by the other players. I think people here who know who I played with can probably guess who that player was, but he wanted to introduce an NPC who was weak and within the party's care so that he could be evil at that character and other players would stop him. He wanted a specific thing to happen. So I introduced, they had a goblin that they captured, like morally dubious, and he started being awful to this goblin. And then the rest of the players did not pick up on the fact that this was a bad thing that he was doing, and the party proceeded to murder this
poor goblin that was completely at their mercy, very weak, and was like, all right, I was not prepared for that to happen, and I will have to figure out what that means for who the party is. I was just not emotionally prepared for, yes, we are all going to kill this NPC together, and we are going to be an evil party. But I think that was very much a learning experience for me, where you can't go in expecting, and this is how the players are going to respond to this story beat, because that's not really how these games work.
For these NPCs, and I absolutely love, Brandon, that you were talking about like people trying to murk your NPC during a monologue, right? So I guess I want to ask, like, clearly your party is ready to shoot them before they finish their first sentence, right? How do you go about getting the characterization of that NPC across if you know you don't have that time to do it? Are there other things you do to try to build up that character beyond just a monologue?
Yeah. I think that sometimes, like, a lot of the time I like to build on that hatred that they innately have for the character. So they'll do like different little things to screw with them, you know, like or I'll intentionally put them in places to that the players can't reach, you know, like they might be like on the other end of a courtyard or something. And it's like it takes everything you've got to get over there to them. And they'll be like just out of their grasp if I want to try to characterize them that way. Or like sometimes I'll like they'll leave something behind, and the characters will like find this item or this object that's like tied to this villain in some sort of way, and it kind of gets them thinking, oh hey, that's right, this is a person, not just a quote unquote villain, you know? And if I want to like try to endear them to the character in some sort of way, but just different things like that, you know?
Sure. I got a question in chat from Danielle Lanois, which was, when you're doing your homebrew campaign, do you make up everything on your own or do you use outside resources? How do you all recommend for yourselves, maybe that secondary part of, do you have recommendations? Like, how do you keep it manageable for yourself? What do you do to help you make your world?
Well, I would recommend that you go buy Stargazer's Guide to Aurora and then use that exclusively for your world building.
I didn't see this plug coming a mile.
Oh wow! What a segue! That was so seamless. That was wonderful.
I'll see myself out.
Stargazer's Guide. Is there a place that we could go check that out on?
No, all right. It's not a... But yes, there is. So.
I tend to, so let me answer the question. So if I'm running a homebrew game, I want to create everything myself. I know that a lot of people, there are lots of great resources. I think you can, especially when you look at things like Tales from the Yawning Portal, stuff like Stargazer's Guide to Aurora, Rime of the Frost Maiden, even like the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, right? Some of these like almost one-shotty style compendiums of adventures are things that you can draw inspiration from and use maps for, like in your homebrew game. But for me personally, and I think those things are great to do, and definitely do them. If I'm making a homebrew game, I want total control of the improv I give. So I want at any moment for me to be able to make up anything that happens, or to justify what's happening in game, or to say yes and to the players with that. I want it to be almost a blank slate. I want the mere skeletons of the road in place so that I can fill that in at the party's discretion. And so for me personally, like when I start talking about other resources, like maybe some like simple stuff, but for the world itself, I want the capacity and the agency's DM to just kind of improv and make it up. And that's the way I kind of run the game. That's how Aurora got made.
I think it's relatively similar to you, Daniel, but when I plan stuff, 90% of the world is something that I will do myself because I enjoy doing it. World building is a hobby of mine. When it comes to mechanical stuff, I tend to look up a lot of outside sources just because that's not a being a relatively new DM, that's stuff where I'm like, I want to double check that I'm not just murdering anybody. I want to, because I've spent a lot of time reading this blog, I want to specifically plug the monsters, know what they're doing. Yeah. It's a really fun resource for figuring out how, I like to find what kind of creatures I want to use or whatever, but it's a really fun way to craft an encounter. I think it's a great resource for that, because I have a lot of thoughts about encounter building, and I think it's very helpful for that. That'll go to all the Reddits for like different, if I want a CR of Elemental that doesn't exist, I could go, and there's lots of guides and stuff for that. So I use those kind of resources a lot.
Reddit is a wonderful resource. I follow many D&D themed Reddits, lots of like homebrew stuff and just conversations, a lot of art and everything. That's where a lot of my inspiration comes from. Sometimes it'll just be like a picture or something, and it's like, ooh, my world needs one of those, and and so you just kind of do it like that. But it all does kind of go through the filter of how does this fit in my world, kind of like what Daniel was saying, being able to tailor make like the improv situations and stuff. Like you kind of have a base of what you want to put in there, but then you throw your own little sauce and your own flavor on it. Like, this is how it works in my world, so that you kind of have that level of control.
Yeah, for me, I'm the same. I'm in the same boat as Deanna when it comes to like the mechanical combat side of things. I actually ask Daniel a lot, as well as my brother, when it comes to the mechanic and combat side of things, because I'm so terrified that I'm going to make the fight unfair. And I think combat balancing is probably one of the more common difficulties as a DM. It's unless you're like coming from a module where like, okay, they've done all that work for you, right? Where it's like, they should be this level, or this area, they should be this level, and these are the monsters.
I've never run a module, but I know that if you enter Curtain Straw and you roll in a random encounter, you can have 6 werewolves against 3 level 1 characters. So don't trust them. Don't trust them to try to kill you.
This is very true. But yeah, I usually ask Daniel. I think Daniel's main tip is usually like the hit points shouldn't exceed the total hit points of the party. So if you combine all the hit points of your party, the party members, and the monster that you have created, or the amount of monsters that you've created exceeds them in number and in hit points, they're probably gonna die. Like that's one of like the easiest gauges that you can kind of like hone in on. Outside of that, homebrew campaign wise, this is kind of in Daniel's world that he created. He created Auroria and kind of set the base structure for the homebrew that I come up with. A lot of the homebrew that I come up with is just the details of like the taverns and what these taverns are, and who's running them, and the uniqueness of them, or the architectural structure of the halls of Myrrh, which a lot of my inspiration for that kind of stuff, or like landmarks and all that kind of stuff, comes from actual landmarks and actual architecture. Like I'll look up unique churches that are made from the natural cavern resources. Like I can't remember where it is, but there's one that I was inspired by is like a salt mine that was turned into, I can't remember what it was turned into, but like it was an underground salt mine that had like these large chandeliers hanging from the top, and like you can walk through it, and it looked like an underground castle. I think it was like, it may have been Swedish, but anyways, like I look and I get inspired from real life locations, and then I flavor it in a way that, makes it unique and fantastical.
Let us know, Danielle, if we have answered your question or if you have more regarding that, because I think that's a really big question, right? And thanks everybody for that. I'm going to respond to one specifically being asked by McBluff to me, But I'm going to phrase, I want to have you all weigh in on it as well, which is McBluff's question is, so when I was running the Quad of Copper, my tone and speech patterns seemed to reflect the atmosphere and vibe of the game. For example, when you were explaining how the leader of the Quad had once successfully captured an adult, you said it in such a way that was almost befitting talking to kids. The players even responded visually as kids hearing something totally rad would respond to it that way, right? Do you intentionally try to keep your tone that malleable? I think if I understand correctly, I often am trying to keep, and I would love to hear everyone else, of how do you, and this kind of goes to pacing, how do you as the GM embody bringing people back? Because D&D or any role-playing game to me is one where what the players do is they are in the game, out of the game meta, back to the game, in the game. And so you're negotiating that transition, right? And so for me, to respond specifically to this, I often am thinking a lot about that. I'm thinking, if it's urgent, I'm going to speak urgently. If it's supposed to be exciting, I'm going to be excited. If I'm sad, I'm sad. And I'm doing that to try to help cue the players as to what that tone is, right? And so I think a lot about that. And I guess, how do you all negotiate moments where your game has lulled or picked up in pace, and what do you physically notice yourself do in those situations?
I'm thinking so hard. I kind of have two answers to this. The first is, I think, kind of touching more on the side of the question that was like you taking on the childlike tone for more childlike game. I know that very specifically with the Neverland campaign, I straight up reread a lot of sections of Peter Pan. There's a very specific style that it was written in and a tone that it had. And a lot of the longer descriptions that I did, especially entering in and exiting out of the session, were trying to fit in that tone and build that atmosphere by speaking in a specific way. I think I talked about it being like a slice of pie of the world or something like that. Like the specific way that I described things was within that tone of the book. And the second, it's a complete non-answer to the rest of the question, and that's actually something I struggle with a lot, is coming in and out of the story, because I'm naturally a very goofy person, and I want to joke around with the players, but how to provide that constant atmosphere befitting the tone, I guess. I'm very interested to hear what other people have to say.
I'm with you, Deanna. That's a rough one for me too, like, because I am, as a DM, I am like, it's hard for me as a DM, it's hard for me to like get lost in it, because I'm like the man behind the curtain making sure all the magic is happening, so I have to stay focused back here, and it makes it difficult to kind of immerse myself in it. That being said, I feel like I will try to emphasize certain moments, you know, to bring people back, or like I find it's much more easier, like you said, like to calm after a moment of really intense, like maybe like a super intense combat, or like a really intense social encounter or something. It's a lot easier to have those like quiet reflective moments than it is to ramp up like the tension without just being like, you know, there's a villain coming or something. And there's a couple of different ways. I think I'll just give one instance. During Candlekeep, they had to go to this, it was like a tainted pool of it was like a spring, right? And so it ended up looking like a bog, and they were trying to stop this ritual. They were trying to summon this evil god into the swamp or whatever, and the players were super stressed out because, you know, time was of the essence, and there were like five different little rituals that they had to stop, and the swamp was huge. They didn't know how they were going to do it. And then there was this beat where like the players realized that they were never supposed to stop the ritual, and so with Tailspire, you have this thing where like you can make the little pieces super huge, and like when they walk, they kind of shake the screen or whatever. And so I revealed him, and he was kind of under the water. You had this really cool moment where like this giant god comes up out of the water, and it really like, and then like everyone was like, and like Christian's reaction was hilarious. Like, all right, game face, you know, now's the time, because no one knew that's kind of the way that it was going, and it just wrapped up the tension in such a great way. Everybody had a good time.
Yeah, I wanna weigh in here because as a DM, I think my weakest skill, and the thing I do the worst, is like tone of voice and impersonating NPCs. I think it's one of the things I'm just terrible at. I'm just not good at it. So Jake's like, yeah, me too. Like, what?
Yeah, I'm terrified using any accent.
I thought for a second I was like, Jake's like, yeah, you're terrible at that.
No.
Jake says, yeah, you suck.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
No, but I think it's good to know your weaknesses, right? And so I know I'm bad at that, right? So, and I tend to run very relaxed, like super relaxed games in general. So, for those of you who may be out there who are like me and just trying to have a good time and are not great at all these NPCs and tonally changing the version of the game, I gotta come out straight out and say it. Like, I'll just be like, hey, we're about to get serious now. Or I'll just be like, hey, something's about to happen. Like, we're gonna change it up. Like, I know it, or like I'll respond to something in character that someone said out of character, and then I'll be like, all right, let's get this back together. And I try to, I just straight up tell the players like, hey, let's get back on track.
I have a very similar thing. I've not used it as a DM, but I've seen DMs use it very well. If like the party is going in a direction tonally that is a little bit different, all you do as a DM is you open another playlist of music, sad piano, and then all the players go, oh fuck, oh shit, totally happening. just a hint to get to that emotional point.
Nice.
I was gonna throw that to Lauren because I know Lauren does that a lot.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, usually I have like a playlist for different moments. I feel like for me it's a combination between music but also setting up the stage verbally through narration, especially with sad moments. Like if I was to go back to like when Revenir Thorn died, the music changed, but there needs to be some sort of pause and transition between the music changing and the build-up, because if you go from one moment and then you immediately go to sad, like you need a second to kind of marinate in it. For me as a DM, but I feel like also as the player, so you can kind of really get set and marinate in the scene. For Revenir Thorn's death, for example, just setting up the scene, just like the hush over all the people in the inn, and just kind of like that moment of walking into the inn. Everyone is dead silent. This is usually a place of, jovial friendship and cheering and having fun, and it's just absolutely quiet. And the players walking in, seeing that, knowing what's coming, and that build up, and taking that moment to build it up for my players, but also for me mentally, because I know that I'm about to play somebody who's dying. And so it helps me as a DM to really get in the moment, to feel what Revenir is feeling, and like what it might feel like to pass on. And like she was in a lot of pain, so like kind of getting in that mindset and being able to do that helped me channel, I don't know what to call it, the sadness, because I was crying. I was legit crying during that entire scene. The other thing I would say is, on an improv note, I think this is probably the one thing that anxiety helps with, is I can very rapidly put myself through this kind of like, I don't know, army-like situation where I'm like shouting at myself in my head, okay, why is George sad? George is sad because he sells cabbages. Cabbages are his livelihood. He's never going to make money again. He's probably going to be put on the streets, and he's going to be poor, and he's going to have to eat things out of the gutter. So this racing through of like why he feels this way, what he does, who he knows, and so that's kind of how that ends up happening.
I can commiserate Lauren. All of my NPCs also have anxiety disorders because they have to go through my brain.
Okay, I have one thing I want to mention. I think it's super helpful. I think it'll help people who are like me, who are not fantastic voice actors like the rest of you are. So we used to do something in our games, and I love doing it with new players. I love doing it in one shots. I love doing it anytime and even like Adventurers League stuff, right? When you're working with people you've never played with before, and because it takes some time to get to, as a DM, player relationship, right? I have done things before where we used to just physically say, or we would have like, we used to take the lights in our living room, and we would take them, and anytime,
I remember that.
Because we would have ambient light on, like you're in a tavern or whatever. But anytime we wanted to get serious, or it was gonna get sad, or it was gonna have some sort of emotional beat, we would take the lights and they would go from ambient to like blue. And the thought process was, and you could just say it at the table, the thought process was, anytime it's blue in here, or it's red, or it's yellow, everything you say is in character, no matter what it is. So don't joke around, don't play around, don't say anything that you wouldn't say as your character. What we are experiencing real-time game right now. And if you say it, it's real.
I remember
and we would just change the lights, and we would, and that's, we used to do that a lot. And it was like, it was so great because it was like, all right, once it would define the times when it was fun, goofy tabletop RPGs that we all love, and let's get something out of this, because this is the thing we're addicted to, is being other players and doing this thing. So it clearly defined those moments as a DM, and I remember doing that, and I remember Lauren doing that. It was super great.
It also made social encounters more challenging, because a lot of games, or a lot of games prior to that, you know, social encounters, you could sit there and you could be like, I mean, we could just kill him. But the way we handled it with the lighting is like, everything that comes out of your mouth, the NPC can hear. So if you're like, we could just kill him, the NPC would be like, slink, I'm sorry, what? You know, pulling the sword. So it made it that much more difficult, and it made it more valuable for players who had like message, or, you know, to cast whisper, like, because you're in front of these people and you're having a social encounter, which is part of the game, which is part of the challenge.
Jake, unless you have a specific question you want to bring up next, what Daniel was talking about brought up a question from chat that CJ brought up, because Daniel, you said a couple times that like doing voices and stuff is something you feel that you are weak at, and CJ was asking a couple of questions, like what do you think like your greatest strength is, and something you feel like you're weaker at or want to work more at, and in what way do you feel like you've improved the most over time as a GM? Like, let me see, what did they say? What is a way you have improved as a GM since you started? What is something you do really well, and what do you want to work more on? Yeah,
Jake, go first.
I can probably start here. I don't know about the rest of you, and I'm going to shout out to Christopher MCV, who is in this chat. I've been GMing for about 15 years or so. I sucked as a GM and continue to not do well at many things as a GM, right? And I really want to just emphasize that, because I think that I find that there's a myth that says that GMs have to be really good, and you don't. You know, you're just another person running the show a little bit, and so like cut some slack when you screw stuff up, you know. And I did not when I was younger. The thing that I've changed the most and I've gotten better at, the thing I used to be really bad at, is I took myself too seriously. And I've learned that games can be really funny. They can, even very comedy-based games, comedic games, can have very serious notions in them. But people are here to have fun, right? And that's the first rule that I follow. So I think what I tend to do really well as a GM at, just as I've practiced it, is shiny design. Like very heavy intention design. I kind of know why I did what I did for everything I did. And in doing so, it really helps me sort of be flexible on the fly with people. So that's what I would say is like the thing that I was really bad at is I took myself way too seriously, and I've gotten better at being just much more relaxed as a person over the course of these years. So.
I definitely feel that. I would say that the thing that I need to work on or needed to work on. I feel like I've gotten better about it here recently. Is over preparing and too much world building. I know when you're prepping for games, it can be super. It's a lot of fun because you're brainstorming and especially when you really get in that flow state, you're like, oh, this idea is cool, boom, 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 boom. But I guess in those moments, you got to remember that like you're not crafting the story for you, you're crafting it for your players. So like it's cool to have a list of like awesome shit that eventually might make it into the game, but I think that one of the things that I've gotten a lot better at is like keeping my players in mind and crafting these like really awesome character beats and moments, and like giving my players the room to kind of express themselves. Like if I know that a character is like hyper impulsive and will touch any, like everything is a shiny, you know what I mean, that I'll make sure to sprinkle those in and give them time to kind of like play around with who that character is. And like if I know that there's a character that's like super reserved and quiet and doesn't like to talk, then I will make sure to saddle him with an NPC that will not shut the fuck up, and just to kind of challenge them and maybe kind of look at their characters a different way. Like I really like it when I can have a hand in showing a player something different about their character.
I can go next. I think I'm gonna, just because I think mine is fairly similar to yours, I think the thing that I feel most confident in as a GM, and I don't think it showed a lot in Neverland, because unfortunately in that situation it was a one-shot and I didn't know everyone's character concept at the same time that I was writing it up, so I didn't get to highlight it as much as I wanted to. But I think something that I'm relatively strong at is highlighting people's characters and giving them character-specific opportunities to show off a personality trait or a feature that they have and let them be really cool. It's something I enjoy doing, and I think that I tend to do it well. And I didn't get to so much in Neverland. I tried to give people specific beats from what I saw of their character, but I would love to be able to do it more. The thing that I think I'm weak at is that I get, I want to call it an anxiety thing, but like I tend to hand things to players. If I go, oh, I don't know if I presented this right, I'll just tell them what I'm trying to tell them. And I don't give players the time to figure things out on their own as much as I should. Like, oh, maybe this puzzle is too hard, I should just tell them the answer. I haven't gone that far, but I think I pass out hints too easily, or I guide players a little too hard. I don't give them the space to make mistakes because I put it on myself. And I think that's something that I want to improve on. Yeah.
I think for me, I think I'm good at world building, and I think that I'm really good at channeling NPC personality. I think those are probably my two strong. Well, there you go. I think those are probably my strongest suits. I think my weakest points that I definitely hound people to help me out with, combat for sure, and balancing. There have been a couple times, the one time that I didn't ask anyone for help at all was the bandit fight. And you all remember how the bandit fight went. It was not good.
We were victorious, that's what I remember.
You were victorious, but it's the kind of thing where it's like, oh god, it's another combat encounter. Like everyone's like, oh, it's just bandits. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm gonna throw at you. I feel like there's always that antsiness, like, oh god, what did you put together, Lord? Please tell me that you had help. Please tell me you talked to somebody. So definitely, I would say combat is definitely still part of my biggest weakness. And I would also say that again, kind of going back, I feel like I sometimes take too much control, or I'm in the same boat with you, Dia, and I feel like sometimes maybe like, I don't give you guys enough credit that you have figured it out, and I'll usually be like, you do know what that is, and X, Y, and Z, and this is why, whereas if I should just let you, the player, figure it out without giving you the answer, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I don't give you guys enough credit sometimes, and I do feel like I kind of like lead you a little bit more than is needed, and again, I I think I take too much control sometimes. I think I need to relinquish some control, learn how to let go a little bit more, which is hard.
I just want to say that bandit fight did change the entire dynamic of combat in Faith Sin. It's like, oh, we are very mortal.
I think on a positive note from that though, anytime you guys are in combat, you guys are like, all right, we gonna
fight like our lives depend on it.
You fight like your lives depend on it. And the same goes for like that plant fight with the I forget what the name of it was. But
oh my god.
The one where you almost drowned underwater.
You got dunk tanked like 3 or 4 times.
That goes back to like homebrew character design. Like, I don't know. Be very careful with creatures that can grapple and restrain you from 30 feet away, and then pull you into the water and proceed to waterboard you.
I mean,
before we continue on, what I'm going to say is we did get one last question. And we're going to answer this last question, right? And I want to hear from all of us because we've all done this now. From Danielle. Did you find that your DM style is different from a stream game versus a home-only game? And what do you change? Is there notable things that you change?
Way more control in a streamed game. I have way more, but we need to finish this. We need to get from one point to another. This needs to be presentable. And in a home game, I'm just like, yeah, you can go to the bar and lie down for 5 hours. Chillax.
I will be right back, but I'm listening in. But I'll be right back. All y'all respond to this because you all have run a stream game, and I want to hear this.
Yeah, I will say specifically for Neverland, it's the most I've ever. I think because it was a one-shot and it was streamed, there was absolutely zero improv in that entire game. Everything was written up entirely, and my ass was clenched. Every muscle in my body was tight. The entire session. But I think it does get different in a long-form campaign. But it was a lot more, I felt that desire to exert control more than I ever did in a home game. But I don't know if that's just a one-shot thing or if you guys feel it in a longer-form campaigns as well.
I think DM style versus a stream game versus a home game. Home game, again, is definitely a little bit more relaxed and free form. Very specifically, like what we try to do on, like, we don't stream some shopping. You know, like there's sometimes what we'll do behind the scenes is we'll be like, okay, let's just like what's all the stuff that you want to buy. Like for example, for the Hush Hideout, there was a whole like all the planning for that, all of the purchases of what they wanted to buy. That was all done in chat behind the scenes. We would typically probably play that out during a session in a home game, but we don't feel like you guys want to see like, all right, what do I want to buy, like, and then the arguing back and forth for the plan, and just the entire planning phase. Like what we did was we did do that, but we summarized it, made it a little bit more concise, and it was played through, but it was summed up in a way that was interesting without being very drawn out. So like versus home game versus stream game, that kind of stuff is played out behind the scenes, but then we kind of like summarize it so that you guys don't have to sit through hours of shopping and, you know, planning and boss type fights.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a difference, honestly, with me. Like I said, a lot of my stuff is freeform anyways. You know, I generally come in with you know, my little skeleton notes, and we make the best of it. There is a lot more anxiety and stress going into it, like with stream games, because especially when, I mean, because Candlekeep's like, we're doing the book, but like there's a little homebrew story going that kind of links all the books together. And I know for those games, especially when I know it's like a lot of stuff that I've had to like make up, I'm super nervous because it's like, oh man, I hope all of this shit makes sense, because at the table it's a lot easier to be like, oh yeah, that, you know, and blah blah blah, you just fix it right there on the spot or have to retcon something, where you really don't want to have to do that when you're like on stream. So there is that kind of pressure to, you know, make sure that your stuff lines up and makes sense and still be able to like have, you know, be mechanically sound and have everyone have a good time and stuff. So
Yeah, I think I want to echo something you said there, Brandon, which was, and something Deanna said too, was like, I know when we first started streaming on Iron Valor, I definitely felt as though I needed to have more control over the game than I had when it was homebrew, because it was streamed. But I think the longer I streamed, the less I felt that way. And now I feel as though the only difference between, well, there's like 2 or 3 big differences, right? The only difference between streaming at home and streaming on Twitch is, number one, you have to, I curse less. I curse a lot more and I curse a lot less.
Not curse less, but continue.
I curse significantly less on stream than I do in my normal life and in home games. And that's a consideration of the audience. And the second thing I do is instead of tailoring the game to what my players want, I try to tailor the game to what the audience wants to see, right? So the only real considerations that I make between home game and stream game is who is my audience. Because I've been in games where people want to role play the whole time, and when we're at home, we never have combat, or hardly ever, or we'll have combat every 6 sessions because that's what the players want. Or
you say players, but then I'm like, it's really me.
It's mostly Lauren, right?
It's mostly Lauren.
But I've been in games.
I was a player in his game.
we played games where we'll go 10 sessions, never fight anything. Like we'll level without fighting anything. And then I've been in games where we'll have multiple combats a session because that's what the players want. And so I think the biggest consideration and the biggest difference between home game and stream game is who is your audience. And when you're on stream, it's much harder because you have to have an audience. You have to apply to a much broader audience. And it's almost like you can't dive really deep into anything because you need to be able to cover a broad spectrum. And that's the biggest difference between designing and running campaigns for stream versus being at home. And that's a really tough thing to do.
I found similarly to these things, for me, I ran a game that I wrote myself, right? And I called a friend of mine beforehand because I was freaking out, you know? I was like, oh God, is this gonna go badly or not? And I always, before every game, roll a D20 to see how that session's gonna go. And then I always say, are you sure? And then I roll again and take the second number just to, see what happens. And, I rolled like a 12, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, it's gonna be mediocre. We'll see how this shakes out, right? And one of the things I found about stream games for me versus home games is that I have to put a lot more trust and be much more communicative to my players. They are the true ones driving the show, right? And they're the entertainers. I'm helping them, but they're the ones who are going to run the ship. And they're going to be the ones who adopt cockroaches or go and touch all the shinies in a bar or all decide to get killed because they walked into a trap, right? And it was like horrifying, So I found for me what streaming on or DMing on a stream is it becomes a lot more of me looking at those players and going, I trust you, right? We're in this together and I'm here with you, right? And that's really helped me a lot to make sure we make an entertaining show, as Daniel is saying, because I can't do it alone.
So, Lauren, who do you trust most in all your players in Fate?
Yeah, who's your favorite and least favorite player, and why is both of them Daniel?
Let's go ahead and rank them.
Yeah, and
they both Daniel?
Oh my God!
And then Brandon, you're not a hook, so who's your least favorite and most favorite character?
Iron Valor knows. I will rank them right now. No shame. Absolutely no shame.
Wait, we're just let Lauren off the hook like that?
No, Lauren will go first.
Lauren's first, absolutely.
Lauren first.
I'll tell you who I trust the most, but I don't want to tell you who I trust the least.
You trust Danny the most. I know that you trust Danny the most. Everyone knows that you trust Danny the most.
I do trust Danny the most.
We all know that Finelai we all know Finelai is the favorite.
I do trust Danny the most.
Finn's a favorite, but what?
The way
the thing is, Danny is an intrinsically trustworthy person.
But also,
you and I are not, Daniel.
The way Danny plays off of other people is flawless.
Okay, we're all there's three
I'm
of us
sorry,
on your
I
game
have to
right
say
now.
it. The way Danny plays off of other player characters,
Out of the
and
three of us who are here.
All right, I'm gonna moderate this for a second. So there's your answer, Lauren. You got away
there
with
you
it.
go, Brandon. Your turn.
Brandon, who do you trust the most at your table? You don't actually have.
Rank them as your favorirs. Let's go 1 through 5.
Rank
1 through
them as my favorites. What?
Yeah,
what
1 through 6. Yeah.
Who else in my game?
We're gonna watch the show just get so wrecked shortly.
Oh yeah,
everyone's gonna be so mad.
I'm about to ruin Iron Valor right now.
Here, I'll help you, Brandon. It's Raina, Dylan, James, Max, Christian, CJ. Look at that. I didn't even skip a beat. No. I'm telling him all of the players because he said that he couldn't.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, no!
I thought that was so
No! I was just listing out the players so he could make his list.
So intense. I thought you were just ranking them.
No! Oh my god!
Yeah, Lauren, that's it.
No,
not
because
even like a thought process. Like already had the list prepared.
No!
Yeah.
Like over
She
here.
pulls out. I printed this earlier.
No! because Brandon was like, "Who plays in my game again?" And I was like, "I'll tell you right now." That you guys. Oh my
Brandon,
god.
Give us one answer, and then I'm gonna end this show. So
Rank
say only one.
Rank only one answer.
Brandon,
only
why
answer.
am I your favorite player on Iron Valor, even though I am not?
Even though you're not on the show. Yeah, because you're not on the show. That's why you're my favorite. No, but honestly, probably Raina as Abigail is probably my favorite character. Followed by Amelia, played by Max. She's pretty dope. Then Gregory, played by Christian. Then Elowen, played by CJ. Then Detective Rasputin, played by
What's
Dylan.
his name?
Poor Hugo.
What's his name?
Oh my
played
God.
by Dylan.
Hugo.
And then Hugo, played by James.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Brandon, what you were just doing is my nightmare because often, sometimes I don't know the players' names. Sometimes, like I'm really bad with names, so like I'll forget your name as a person, and I'll just only know your character name, and I'll just be like, "Yeah, so what's going on, Odin?" And I'm like, "God, I don't know your."
Oh wait, who are you? I know your character.
Well, let me go check the users in chat. Make sure that James isn't here.
I'll say legit.
Yeah, no, they're all like, I am also. No, I mean, like, listen, all of y'all are like 5 stars. It's like ranking. It's like rank your top 6 players. It's like y'all are the top 6. What do you want me to do?
It's not fair to do it, right? Because you fall in love with your character.
I think it's fair to do.
No, but they all.
I don't.
Well, like they all have such good. It's
fair
really
to ask. It's not. It's fair.
Well, it's really the party, right? Because they all have such good like chemistry with each other, and we literally talked about this for the after show.
Some are more interesting than others, but we don't have to get in.
All right.
Oh
so
my god!
I have to close this show, right?
Sorry.
Audience, thank you
They're
so
trying to make life
much
difficult.
for sitting around and listening to us talking about GMing in a variety of ways, right? I had an absolute blast. I learned a ton. I took some notes on my trusty note cards that I always do about what you all were saying. I really appreciate just taking some time to do something that I don't think GMs get to do that much, which is sort of just talk about why or what they do, and how they feel about various things. If you really enjoyed this, please let us know. I think it would be really fun to potentially do this again, potentially one where we bring in a couple of cast members. Lauren, you kind of had the gauntlet here of three of these other three folks are in your game.
I did. I realized that
Hey, let me pitch something. Here's what we should do. Whoever's going to run the next Iron Valor, we should bring them in and have them ask us all questions before they run it. It's going to be great.
So thanks everybody for coming and watching. This is our short rest. And I know that there are a lot of questions everybody has. I really welcome you to just reach out to me or to potentially others. GMing feels like an island, and you are not alone. There are a lot of people doing the same thing as you, and often your players want you to succeed because if you succeed, everyone has fun. And so feel free to reach out to me on Discord or anywhere. I love talking about GMing. And this was our short rest talking about GMing with many of the GMs throughout Ink and Lyre. Thanks, guys.
And I do want to add, one of the things that Daniel has always said to any new DM, there's a lot of anxiety and fear, but just remember you're playing with your friends, and any good friend is there for you and builds you up, and they're there. They want you to succeed. So I just wanted to say that. Daniel said that to me when I first started DMing, and that sticks with me. So
it's true. I do say supportive and uplifting things like that on a regular basis.
Put it on the record. He said
Daniel was uplifting this one time, and it stuck with me forever.
No!
The one time that he was uplifting to me.
One time, 3 years ago, Daniel said something nice to me, and I still remember it to this day.
Well,
when I was a wee babe, Daniel said to me, "It's okay to cry," and that stuck with me for 25 years. I just think about that.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Some are the other shows that we have on our stream as a whole. Mondays, of course, is our Fate Send show. That's the Homebrew Dungeons & Dragons show that I run. That's Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tuesdays, we have, yes, I know. I don't know if that's what everyone's signing to me. I will get to that. Tuesdays, but not this coming Tuesday. We're going to be having our Malifaux tournament that's coming up. So very exciting about that. And then Wednesdays, we have our Iron Valor show, where we are currently running Candlekeep Mysteries with Brandon, of course. Brandon is running that show. And that is Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, of course, Fridays, we have our short rest show where we chill. Sometimes we play video games. Sometimes, like tonight, we just sit back, relax. We talk with you, the audience. We answer questions. And yeah. However, next week, I was wondering if that's what everyone was trying to word sign to me. Next week, we are taking a little bit of a break, so no Fate's End episode on Monday. Tuesday, we're not going to have our Malifaux game tournament. I'm not sure what...
Christian's birthday.
Yes, I'm getting to that. I haven't gotten to Friday. I was on Tuesday. Wednesday, we will not be having our Candlekeep game. We are participating in a day off Twitch. And then Friday, we will be having a stream on Friday that we are celebrating Christian's birthday, and Christian is going to be taking over short rest. I believe Christian wants to do some doodles and sketching, so we might have some other people joining Christian in some doodles and sketching, maybe some more dungeons and doodles, we'll see. But we're gonna be doing some drawing with Christian and celebrating his birthday on next Friday. So just a reminder, no Monday show, no Tuesday show, no Wednesday show. We're taking a small break, but we're coming back that Friday to celebrate Christian's birthday with some short rest and some doodles. Other than that, Daniel, who are we raiding this evening?
Is Diana still up?
Is Diana?
Diana, you up?
Question mark.
We raiding.
Well, we're gonna be raiding.
3, yeah, Super Dylan's still on, playing some Dragon Age. Just go over there.
Woo!
Well then, in that case, we are gonna be raiding Super Dylan this evening. I hope I spelled that right. And just a reminder, Super Dylan is Diana Gatta, who wrote, let me point to the right person, wrote the game that Deanna GM'd for a charity live stream a couple months back. So you can actually get that Neverland that Neverland campaign setting on. I think it's either Drive Through RPG or DM's Guild.
Drive Through RPG.
It's Drive Through RPG. Okay, you can get that on Drive Through RPG. So we're gonna be rating Super Dylan and sharing the love. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.